NBC News leadership has announced that former RNC chair Ronna McDaniel will not be an NBC News contributor.
Ain't nothing changed, nothing new here to see. This ain't nothing but some political maneuvering. America, welcome to the eulogy, eat it up. It's called political buffoonery.
Hey there, everybody, and welcome to This Week in DUMBmocracy, where we showcase some of the dumbest newsmakers of the week. Boy, that didn't take long now, did it? Former RNC chair Ronna McDaniel is now former paid contributor to NBC News. Basically everyone at MSNBC, Rachel Maddow, Joy Reid, Morning Joe, Mika Brzezinski, Nicole Wallace, Jen Psaki, the whole gang got together and decided that the executives at NBC News made a big mistake in hiring someone for whom they disagree with vehemently about the 2020 election. And even other buffoons in media are now calling out NBC News for their blatant hypocrisy. There are no heroes in this story, folks. We're dealing with buffoons all around, and we'll break it all down and why I think Ronna McDaniel should sue the shit out of everyone.
Language.
We're going to get into all of that, but before we do, please subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell so you don't miss any other shows. And if you like what you're seeing here in this or any other video on the channel, smash that thumbs up button, like, comment, share the show with your friends, all that good stuff, because all that feeds the YouTube algorithm.
It just needs to be fed.
So feed it.
Thank you guys so much in doing your part to help grow the channel by liking and sharing and all the stuff you're doing. You're really helping grow the channel. The subscriber base is growing every week thanks to you. And by the way, if you're one of those new people who are finding the channel for the first time, I hope this video earns your subscription as we talk about MSNBC's whiny-ass bitches getting Ronna McDaniel fired, how NBC News kowtowed to said whiny-ass bitches, and how even known buffoons in the media, like Chris Cuomo and Geraldo Rivera, are calling out MSDNC for being whiny bitches.
Bitch-ass bitch.
But I'm going to go a step further in this video and say that Ronna McDaniel, she should get a lawyer, and she should get into court immediately to go after all of MSNBC's whiny-ass bitches.
No mercy!
Let's break down what happened in the past 48 hours. So before we get to this video, I recommend checking out Monday's video, which I linked in the upper right-hand corner of the screen, that discusses how Chuck Todd's complaints, originally against Ronna McDaniel that everybody else dogpiled on, seemed to be personally attacking Ronna McDaniel for having a certain viewpoint about the 2020 election and the aftermath thereof. But all these people seem to couch this in journalism ethics. We don't want to be associated with this person because we don't know whether she's telling the truth or not, or just saying what we want to hear. Which, by the way, is the same argument you can make for literally every single paid contributor in media today. That being said, let's get into this segment where MSDNC makes the big announcement about Ronna McDaniel getting canned.
NBC News leadership has announced that former RNC chair Ronna McDaniel will not be an NBC News contributor. We have a new email and update that's come out just within this hour. So this is sort of breaking news here within our organization on a story that has garnered significant attention and criticism. And what I'm going to do now, to be very clear, is read the entire update from NBC Universal News Group Chairman Cesar Conde. He has written in this new email, quote, "There's no doubt that the last several days have been difficult for the news group. After listening to the legitimate concerns of many of you, I have decided that Ronna McDaniel will not be an NBC News contributor." He goes on to write that no organization, particularly a newsroom, can succeed unless it is cohesive and aligned.
Excuse me? A baking powder?
Cohesive and aligned. That sounds a lot to me like a monolith of propaganda rather than a newsroom. I think a newsroom would be healthy if it had differing viewpoints and were not necessarily cohesive and aligned. Sure, they have to be cohesive and aligned for purposes of the mission of reporting good news, being unbiased, and things like that. But what I think is happening here with Cesar Conde is he's saying that the newsroom being against Ronna McDaniel because of her personal views is enough for him to not extend the offer or to basically cancel the contract, whatever the case may be, to Ronna McDaniel. It sounds suspiciously like a monolith at MSDNC, much like we've suspected over the years that they care about their viewpoint, they care about pushing their agenda, and everybody must be rowing in the same direction in that newsroom.
Over the last few days, it has become clear that disappointment undermines that goal. The news chairman continues to say, quote, "I want to personally apologize to our team members who felt we let them down. While this was a collective recommendation by some members of our leadership team, I approved it and take full responsibility for it," says Cesar Conde, the chairman. He explains, quote, "Our initial decision was made because of our deep commitment to presenting our audiences with a widely diverse set of viewpoints and experiences, particularly during these consequential times."
Do you guys actually believe your own bullshit?
Do you really think MSNBC, as I like to call it, MSDNC, likes to have diverse viewpoints and experiences? Let's make that the topic of the day right now. Let me know what you think in the comments about how diverse you think MSDNC is.
And then, in closing, this message, which, again, is brand new. We're airing it for the first time here on MSNBC, having come out this hour. Quote, "We continue to be committed to the principle that we must have diverse viewpoints on our programs, and to that end, we will redouble our efforts to seek voices that represent different parts of the political spectrum," end quote.
I totally believe you, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't believe that for a second. The idea of cohesion and alignment, to me, is a partisan idea. They have a partisan viewpoint, and that doesn't mean that there's going to be diverse viewpoints on their programming at all. And their own talent made it that way. Of course, the talent at MSDNC couldn't be happier. In fact, they can't hold back their joy on air right now.
Pun intended.
So something happened. Another thing happened that is not about the abortion situation. Our chairman of the NBC Universal News Group, Cesar Conde, who we both know very well, he sent a memo that we all got as employees here, rescinding the hiring of Ronna McDaniel. And I know I felt very strongly about it. I know you felt very strongly about it. I think everyone from 4 o'clock on, from Nicole all the way to midnight, we all felt very strongly and said so on our respective shows yesterday.
Whiny little bitches. I'll keep on saying it.
And I just have to say, when somebody does the right thing, I feel like it should be acknowledged as publicly as we acknowledged our outrage. And so I know how I feel about it. I am grateful to Cesar for actually making the right decision. I think it was the right decision. But I want to get your take as well.
Oh, well, thank you for asking me about it.
Oh, thank you for asking me so much about my opinion on this point where we all seemingly agree on everything, and how we in this little clique kept someone we don't like off our airwaves. Why, thank you so much for doing it. Do you see the fakeness in this whole thing? Have you ever heard anybody really say that or do that? Well, thank you so much for asking me that question. It's such a political answer. It's such a nonsense answer. It's such an opening that just makes my skin crawl. Absolutely, totally on point and on brand for Rachel Maddow.
I still feel like a little. It always feels wrong to talk about things, in the company as if it's news, and it's just this. It's not the way either you or I are wired. I know, but I will just say that journalists are a fractious bunch. And in our big company with all sorts of different journalistic entities, you have all sorts of different people working in this business, doing all sorts of different kinds of work. And to see the essentially unanimous feeling among all the journalists in this building and all the sort of senior staff and all the producers and everybody in this building about this.
You were beautiful along.
You were beautiful, Dick.
Oh, you were beautiful, Terry.
To the Mutual Aid Society.
But then to see the executives and the leadership hear that and respond to it and be willing to change course based on it, based on their respect for us and hearing what we argued, I have deep respect for that. I do. I mean what I said on the air last night on my show, that I think that acknowledging that you might have gotten something wrong is a real sign of strength, a real show of strength. And I think it's a show of strength, and I think it's a show of respect for the people who work at this company and who make us who we are. That leadership was willing to change on this, and I'm grateful to them. You know, it's not about hiring a Republican. It's not even about hiring somebody who has Trump ties. This was a really specific case because of Ms. McDaniel's and her involvement in the election interference stuff. And I'm grateful that our leadership was willing to do the bold, strong, resilient thing.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to be using her name because she's a witness in the Michigan electors case. I mean, it's like it's less awkward to have to say, and by the way, this person works for NBC News, right? We're glad we don't have to do that.
Yeah, so they don't want to associate with Ronna McDaniel because she amplified a message that they're against, and basically saying that she's a liar. She was talking about election interference in the 2020 election, and we heard the line before how there was no interference. It was the most scrutinized election of all time. As an election attorney, I'm here to tell you there is no such thing as a perfect election. There's certainly irregularities in every single election. Whether or not they interfere with the outcome is another story. But for someone to say, hey, I have grievances about the way this election was administered in different places, that's pretty reasonable to say, and that's what Ronna McDaniel has been saying when she was RNC chair and when she wasn't RNC chair, when she went on Meet the Press over the weekend. This, to me, feels completely hypocritical because you have known liars on MSNBC. You want me to give you an example? Let's talk about Jen Psaki. Remember this tweet from the 2020 election campaign where she said that the Hunter Biden story was Russian disinfo? How'd that turn out to be? Yet she was hired straight out of the Biden White House, straight from the communications department at the White House. She was the chief spokesperson for the White House and for the president. Her job was basically to spin and twist and turn and do all these agenda gymnastics to lie about what's going on in the administration. And there was certainly a lot to avoid and to misdirect and to do these things with. Yet she was hired, no questions asked, got her own show on MSDNC, and everybody loves that. There's your hypocrisy. And I'm not the only one pointing this hypocrisy out. Even other media buffoons that we've identified in the past, they're taking their shots at MSDNC as well. When it comes to media buffoons, the biggest one that I've identified over the past almost decade now is the guy you're seeing on the screen right now, Chris Cuomo. In fact, he's featured in my book, Schnooks, Crooks, Liars, and Scoundrels, a field guide to identifying political buffoons, available right now on Amazon, at Barnes & Noble, and other online bookstores. It's also available in the New York Public Library, which is a great moment for the book. I can't believe that happened. But back to the story. Chris Cuomo even recognizes the hypocrisy of a news organization like MSNBC, like NBC News, doing Ronna McDaniel dirty here. Let's see what he has to say about it.
NBC hires her. I'm sure other people were trying to get her, but now everybody's mad. Now, this happens in the media. Somebody hires somebody that other people would have hired as well, but they attack the place that hired her. But this is coming in-house. Big shots inside NBC, like Morning Joe co-host Mika Brzezinski. She said this.
And we hope NBC will reconsider its decision. It goes without saying that she will not be a guest on Morning Joe in her capacity as a paid contributor.
Look, I have no beef, but it was okay for you, Mika and Joe, to have Trump on all the time and to talk to him about what questions to ask, right?
Flashback.
Oh, do you don't want me to do the ones for the deportation?
We really have to get us some questions. That's right. Nothing too hard, Mika.
Okay.
4 hours again. Look at that.
End of flashback.
So this is Chris Cuomo's redemption arc, right? He went and spoke with Tucker Carlson. He knows where the bodies are buried in liberal media. He's been a part of making the sausage that is partisan hackery. So he knows it when he sees it, and he's been pulling back the curtain on these machinations in liberal media. I appreciate it. I still think the guy's a buffoon. I still think he has his own agenda. He's out for himself. I get all that. You can have your opinions about him as well. But he certainly knows where the bodies are buried, and calling out Mika Brzezinski in particular here, just a nice touch.
when it was working for you, when he was running, right? When you guys were all pals, that was okay, right? You didn't have any problem with that, right? Just because you went bad on him when it became convenient because you work at a lefty outlet, this is okay. Now you can be high-minded about it, right?
Calling MSNBC as a lefty outlet on cable news, kind of a big deal. I mean, we've all said it, we all know it, but to hear someone like Chris Cuomo, who's been in the lefty news, calling them out as such, that to me is a big moment. And as much as I think he's a buffoon, and I call him Fredo in the book and all that, hats off to him. He's maybe making amends, maybe he's operating in his own self-interest. I don't know, it remains to be seen. But I'll take what I can get.
The hypocrisy reeks. Look, I get making the decision not to hire McDaniel, but the idea that NBC News, Chuck Todd, or Mika Brzezinski or Joe Scarborough are offended, what do you make of it?
And now another media buffoon, Geraldo Rivera, is going to weigh in. And of course, in typical Geraldo fashion, he doesn't hold back either.
Screw them. I mean, I like everyone you just named. I don't know Chuck Todd, but Mika and Joe, and I heard Nicole Wallace said something bad against Ronna McDaniel. I mean, the whole idea is that they were hiring her to be the ultimate insider. And here she gets washed away. She gets drowned by this tsunami of pretentious bullshit.
Who, you kiss your mother with that mouth?
Really, all of these people that have a stick up their behinds, how dare they?
Well, don't hold back, Geraldo. He's absolutely right in this respect. People like Ronna McDaniel and other partisans who are in politics that go into media are picked up because they have sources. They have insider access. They get information that others cannot. And frankly, I don't bat an eye at this at all. This is how the game is played. Think about George Stephanopoulos being hired by ABC News, Dana Perino at Fox News. It happens everywhere. All the contributors at MSDNC are there because they're valuable to bring in perspectives. And all of them are towing some party line because cohesive and aligned is what MSDNC wants. So it shouldn't come as a surprise that Ronna McDaniel would join MSDNC. But what was surprising is the backlash from all the personalities there because of her own past opinions and viewpoints. Really, it's because she called them fake news. She gaslit them, according to them, as you heard Chuck Todd say in the previous video I created. That's the real reasons why. It's vendetta, in my opinion, and they wanted to embarrass her and make her look bad. But Geraldo is 100% right here. This is what happens in national mainstream media.
And for Mika to say NBC shouldn't hire them, when did she become management? When did she become the arbiter of who got hired and who doesn't get hired? And Chuck Todd, I don't remember his 9 years at Meet the Press as being exactly triumphant. She is the ultimate insider. And to say that they don't want to hire her now because of election denialism, well, then you don't want half the country to watch your network because half the country is Republican, more or less, and they believe, a lot of them, or at least they've convinced themselves about the election being fraudulent or whatever it is. Now, I think that she's wrong. I think that the Republican Party is going off the cliff. But the fact is they hired her to be who she is, who she was. And for them now, these other talent, some of them past their prime to go after her, then they won't have her. And I think that's baloney.
Well, why don't you tell us how you really feel?
I love the scorched earth techniques of both Geraldo Rivera and Chris Cuomo, two people who have been ostracized from the major mainstream media outlets like Fox and CNN and all that, who are now in the hinterlands of News Nation, going after everyone, going after Republicans who've been their targets since day one, but going after their peers who remain in the positions they are and giving unvarnished opinions about them. Hypocrites, past their prime, all that stuff. You're finally getting the unvarnished opinions from these people because they got nothing else to lose at this point. They're on News Nation. How many people are watching News Nation right now? They're out there in the wilderness, and they're taking their pot shots while they can, and if and when they're welcomed back, I'm sure they'll make amends or whatever they have to do. But I told you earlier that I think Ronna McDaniel should sue the shit out of the people at MSDNC, and I'm going to explain why right after this. Like what you see so far? Go ahead and smash that thumbs up button. Also, leave us a comment and tell us what you're thinking, and don't forget to subscribe so you never miss another show. Before I give my legal opinion here, let me give a bit of a disclaimer just to cover my ass. First, just want you guys to know I am a practicing attorney in the People's Republic of New York, so I'm going to be basing my opinion on New York law, and also I'm going to assume that there was an executed and effective agreement between Ronna McDaniel and NBC News for a certain term of years, for a certain amount of money, whereby McDaniel would appear on their programming, give her opinion, use her best efforts to gather newsworthy information, to use her contacts for the betterment of NBC News programming, and that in exchange they would put her on different shows and the like.
Everybody got that?
This concept is called tortious interference with business contract. What do I mean by that? Well, there are certain elements that Ronna McDaniel would have to meet in order to make what they call a prima facie case for this tort against the contributors at MSDNC who allegedly interfered with the business contract. The first would be what I said earlier, the existence of a valid and enforceable contract between Ronna McDaniel and NBC News. And that agreement would have to be something that each and every person who spoke out against her, the Mika Brzezinskis, Joe Scarborough, Nicole Wallace, Chuck Todd, Joy Reid, Rachel Maddow, Lawrence O'Donnell, all of them had to have been aware of this contractual relationship. So far, those two are pretty well known in the public sphere, right? There was an announcement of an agreement between the parties, and all these people commented knowing that there was this agreement. Then you need each person's intentional and unjustified inducement of a breach of contract, basically speaking out on air, speaking against Cesar Conde and NBC News, saying how they don't want to work with this person, they refuse to work with her for all these reasons, all their grievances, the journalism ethics couched in a personal attack that we kind of saw play out over the past week or so. Beyond that, Ronna McDaniel would also have to prove a subsequent breach by the other caused by these defendants' wrongful conduct. So Cesar Conde saying that he heard the grievances of his talent and all the people that worked there, and that he subsequently canceled the agreement, breached the agreement somehow, that may have happened here as well. Now, I don't know necessarily if it was a breach of the agreement, if there was a clause that could have gotten him out of it, a rescission period, something like that, but there may well be, and Ronna McDaniel and her lawyers would know that. And finally, damages. That's pretty easy to prove as well, because that would be the unpaid portion of the contract that she doesn't get.
I figure this is an open and shut case.
Now, I don't know if negotiations are going on right now, but Ronna McDaniel may be holding over NBC News' head that she has this tortious interference claim against their talent and maybe going after them as sort of leverage to get a better buyout of her contract, which I would think would be the prudent course for NBC News here. But it doesn't discount the fact that Ronna McDaniel has a claim against everyone who contributed to this canceling of the agreement, whether it was a breach or what have you. So I'm very interested to see whether there's going to be any sort of discussion about this sort of breach of an agreement caused by the talent at MSDNC. And frankly, I'd leave them in limbo for a while. I'd let them know that you're considering this claim against them and that you might be going forward against Joe Scarborough and Mika Brzezinski or Chuck Todd or any number of them. Let them sweat it out a little bit, Ronna. Again, I'm not backing Ronna McDaniel. I'm just letting you know what I would do if I was advising her. This might be a route to go. And frankly, I think she has a decent case based upon what's in the public sphere right now. It could get interesting here, folks. If there are so many burnt bridges that MSNBC's talent has perpetrated here, this could entirely be a possibility. Do I think it's going to happen? Maybe, maybe not. I think more likely what's going to happen is there's going to be a buyout. I think that MSNBC will buy their piece on behalf of their talent and just give Ronna McDaniel a lot more money than she normally would have gotten out of this. Either way, things have gotten very interesting in the land of NBC News. They've exposed themselves for being the propaganda machine that we always said that they were, and they've exposed themselves to liability thanks to the big mouths on their air.
And you don't want us exposing ourselves.
But that's just my opinion here, folks. I don't know what you guys think about all this. Please let me know in the comments what you think, and as always, like and share the video with your friends, subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell, don't miss any of the shows. Let's get in the comments together, discussing all the shenanigans and buffoonery happening every day this week in DUMBmocracy.
All views and opinions expressed here are not necessarily of the mainstream media and may offend some listeners. It's called political buffoonery.